to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I have met extraordinary people through this program. I'm your host, Karen E. Osborne. But every once in a while, I get to interview a dear old friend, a dear friend who I've known for a long time. Just getting that old out of there. and my dear friend that I have known for a long time is Don Jackson. He is a Hey Don.
Hi, Karen. Great to be with you.
I am so happy to see your face. Now, Don is someone who many of you know that I have a long history in the not-for-profit world. And some of you know that I'm chair of the board of Easter Seals Florida. And Don and I have Easter Seals in common. That's where we met. And we became friends, and we've been friends over that time. And then we found out that we had something else in common. And then the other thing that we have in common is we are both writers. And Don is a poet, and he shared his poetry with me so many years ago. So beautiful. And I wanted to share those with you. So Don is a poet, and his book is called Perched Within My Heart. He also writes essays and stories, and he's going to grace us with some poems today that he's going to read to us. So glad that you are here, Don.
Thank you, Karen. It's a joy to be with you today. It's also a joy to read your books. Thank you so much for that. I've loved sharing this journey with you.
Thank you so much. In fact, Don told me that my latest book is up in his reading room next to his reading chair.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, so tell us, how did you start writing? What was your writing journey like? How did it begin? How did it flow?
Oh, Karen, it started at a very early age, and really as a teenager, riding a tractor out on the farm in Nebraska. And when you're riding a tractor all day, you need to keep your mind busy and think of things. And so I would create songs or poems and things like that, and I'd let them just go away in the air. I deliberately didn't try to remember them. There were some really good ones in those days.
I'm
As a young
sure.
teenager. I mean, all teenagers think their stuff is good, right? So anyway, but I let them dissipate. I let them go away. And then a little later, while I was in college, I was working for a wheat harvest crew. For those of you who don't know what that means, wheat harvest crews generally start in north central Texas, and they harvest wheat all the way north to the Montana border, sometimes even up into Canada. As the seasons are shorter, the wheat harvests later in the year. And so I was part of a college crew driving a combine all across the Midwestern and northern Midwestern states. And I was up in South Dakota driving a combine, and this song came to me that was an original creation, both words and music. And it just meant so much to me, I couldn't let it go. So it happened kind of early in the day, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to remember this all day long. So I kept singing it all day long. And that night I went over to a little, in those days, little churches and small communities weren't locked. And so I went over and opened the door of a church and went in and found a piano and kind of worked out the melody by notes. I knew how to do that, and the words. And so I created a song that I actually my junior college choir ended up performing in my hometown later on. So that was pretty cool. And that was my first time to actually write something and put it down. It's kind of like a poem, but it was a song. And then I had a similar experience later on as an adult. And something came up where I wanted to remember it. And so I was actually in my car driving downtown to Easter Seals and trying to stay on the road and write down the words that I just thought of so I wouldn't forget them. And I didn't have anything to record with. So that I said, okay, that's it. from now on, I'm going to start capturing things that are important to me.
Mm.
And I didn't really have an intention of writing a book. I should say, I always had an intention of writing a book, but I didn't think I was writing one. And so after I had written maybe 2 or 3 or so hundred poems, I thought, oh, I could just I could pick out the ones I really like and put them in a book, in a collection. So I did that, and this little collection
Hold
perched
it up a
within
little
my heart.
higher.
Yeah,
Look at
perched within
that.
my
Isn't that
heart.
beautiful?
Yeah. And so, and that's the one I shared with you years ago. And I'll read a couple of poems there today. And so since that time, whenever I moved, I write. And I get moved pretty often. And it's been a little bit of a transition from just writing poetry now to actually writing essays about things. I found that with certain things, I can say more in an essay than I can say in a poem.
Mhm.
What I liked about poems for much of my life, fortunately, I'm for the most part past those phases, I could I could share my feelings without really saying what I was talking about with a poem.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so I could express myself and get it out there in the universe without necessarily having to divulge everything as I was working through some challenging times.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. I have a dear friend who I'm going to ask her to watch this video. Her name is Maxine, and she's been writing poetry for years, and she keeps them all in these books
Right.
stacked up. And then she started writing essays. She called them explanatory notes, but they were really essays on the topic. And I am going to inspire her by showing her this video and saying, see, this is, look what he did. Look what he did.
Well,
This is
that's an
so
honor. Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you.
So which poems are you going to read for us today?
Well, I thought I would read 2, and they kind of the first one explains very much where I'm coming from, and the other kind of shares one of my passions. But the first one is called Fast Track, and it was written when I was living on the fast track of my professional life. And it goes something like this. Someday I will never set foot on an airplane. Someday I will drive when I'm on the road. But today I must fly wherever I go. And today I look forward to a life slower paced. Mountains are made to always look up to. Streams are made to hear their music. Fields are made to go on forever. When you're flying, life passes you by. The fast pace of business makes more things happen, but in the process, we stop learning to love. Life is not meant to be on the fast track. When will we learn to slow down and live? I'm committed to find a new lifestyle, to spend time living at a much slower pace. But now I'm sitting on a fast moving airplane, writing and dreaming of what life should be. You may think this lifestyle is fun and exciting, traveling around all over this land. But let me assure you, I'm tired of flying. I'm looking forward to life on the ground. Writing on airplanes is like living a dream. It's not really real and it's not really false. But tomorrow I will live my reality and it won't be at 35,000 feet. Those who are watching must think I'm an artist, tapping my foot and singing this song, when the truth is, I'm on the fast track, but at least I can dream I won't be here too long.
What's that? What's that, Don? Oh my
So
goodness, and I can so relate to it.
I know you
That was,
can.
my goodness, that's how I was living my life, and I had to stop. And you know what I also love about that poem is before we got on camera, Don and I were talking about his love of fishing, and and you're living the life that you wrote
I've achieved
about and
I've achieved
dreamt
it.
about. You've
Yes.
achieved it. That is,
I'm,
oh, that's awesome. Okay, read us another one.
all right. This is a shorter one. And I've been reading and studying about Native Americans for a long time. And one of the places I love to fish is on the Crow Reservation in Montana. And I have a little narrative in the front of this poem. It's a very short poem. The narrative says that I visited Pretty Eagle at the invitation of an honorary member of the Crow tribe. It's a sacred site which emotes a spiritual presence. Pretty Eagle's remains were interned in the New York Museum of Natural History before being returned for burial at the site of his vision quest. And so those of you that have learned about or studied Native American culture know about vision quest. I'm not going to get into that, but this was the site. This poem's about the site of Pretty Eagle, his vision quest. It's titled Pretty Eagle. What is this windswept place I find, where Pretty Eagle's spirit lifts? On the precipice of the magnificent view, the warrior rests, who's paid his due. But does he rest, this warrior chief, who led the Crow in war and peace? He sees the beauty of the land around, while the Crow barely live, reservation bound.
Mm.
At least his spirit is finally free. His vision quest home is there to see. His spirit is real and can be felt on this faraway ridge where Pretty Eagle knelt.
Mm. That is lovely. That is lovely. Um, I have a dear friend who's a writer. His name is Russell Rowland, and he lives in Montana, and he
Yes.
writes a lot about Montana, and he writes about Native people. And there's another person I'm going to have to share this video with.
Well, that'd be an
That
honor.
was
Thank you.
that was lovely. That was lovely. Now, are you working on anything now?
Well, as I mentioned before, I'm always working, but I actually have a project that I'm working on,
That's what I
and
guess
it's
I meant.
yeah, and it's a bit elusive, but I think I've found a what I'm trying to do. It took a long time to figure out how to do this, and it's going to be a collection of poetry and essays. And at first, I thought I would call it a memoir, but it's really more of a going to be more of a journal,
Hmm.
kind of a memoir journal, if you will.
Mhm.
I'll share some of where I came from, but it's not like you know, here's everything you ever needed to know about the life of Don Jackson. It's be more about here's a little bit about the life of Don Jackson, but here's what's in his head. So it's it's dealing with my views on things, and some of them probably won't be that popular with a lot of people, and they will be popular with others. But I'm just going to put it out there, and um, it's really intended for friends and family. I'll probably self-publish it,
Mhm.
and unless somebody says, "Oh no, you got to do more with this," But I'm not really looking to in my career to get on the author circuit because I have too many things to do. And but I love to write, and I think I want to put this together in a way that would be meaningful to the people that are important to me, and share some
Yeah.
thoughts, kind of a collection of things that and some of it deals with 9/11. We both worked through the 9/11 days, and it's events like that that really stir me. Um,
Mm.
especially having visited New York City for work 1 to 2 times a month through that whole period for years. Um, that was quite a journey in those times for those of us that were flying and working, and particularly going to New York City and Washington,
Yeah.
D.C. And I still
Yeah.
drive by the Pennsylvania site, periodically. All those things they touch my soul. And so I've tried to capture some words that maybe would touch other people in a similar way, you know.
Yeah. So, just something to think about is that going to a small press instead of just self-publishing, putting it
Yes,
out to a small press can can really be amazing and wonderful because you get a wider audience and you don't have to. I mean, those of us that wish we were doing a book talk a week, but that's that first of all, it doesn't tend to happen. You're not invited.
right,
Yeah. And there's so much online selling that one can do. So
right.
anyway, you just plant that seed. I can't wait
Well,
to, I
I
hope.
have to admit it, on a few of your podcasts, you've had people on that have talked about that and how to help people. And so I picked up some ideas, and I certainly have a friend to call.
You do have a friend to call. Absolutely. Absolutely. So if readers want to find out more about you, if they want to follow you anywhere on social media, and if they wanted to purchase your book of poetry, how could they do that?
Well, the best way to purchase it, if listeners wanted to do that, or readers, would be to email me at djackson515 at yahoo.com. And, and I'd be happy to provide that book for you. And it would be honored, actually. So djackson515 at yahoo.com. I can also be found on LinkedIn, mostly to keep track of my professional friends. But Don Jackson, it says retired, and I have a good shot of my fishing attire on. And it also says Hastings College and Chicago metropolitan area, right underneath. But it's Don Jackson on LinkedIn, and you could reach me there as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. I read your poems a long time ago, and so it was so wonderful being reintroduced to them and reminding me how beautiful they are and how powerful they are. So thank you so much for being on, and thank all of you for joining us. Oh, you didn't ask one of the most important questions. This is, what are you reading? What are you writing? Can you recommend any? And you see, you got me all caught up in wanting to help you get published. And so,
That's
do
great.
you have any book recommendations for our audience?
Well, I certainly can share what I've been reading, and since the passing of George Floyd, his murder, I've been focusing on reading about racism in America. And the one book that really stuck with me was Begin Again by Eddie Glaude Jr., who is chairman of the Department of African American Studies at Princeton University. Really a remarkable man. I've never met him, but he, for his PhD, he studied the writings of James Baldwin. And so after reading Professor Glaude's book, Begin Again, I started working my way through the James Baldwin collection, which I couldn't recommend more highly for anyone who wants to really dig deeply into how things were and relate that to how they are today, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree with you. I've taken so many writing classes over the years, and James Baldwin is always, always in the in the curriculum. He's just an
Yeah.
incredible writer and writing about important things. So thank you for those recommendations.
Yeah.
And now I can say bye to everybody because we didn't want to miss that. So
Thank you.
thank you all for watching. And I hope that I will see you next week. What are you reading? What are you writing? Have a great week, everybody. Bye.
All right.